Good morning and welcome to the National Television Network NTN. My name is Virgil Leonti. This morning we are live at the House of Assembly where we are about to witness a live parliamentary sitting. It is a simulated sitting by the Caribbean Women in Leadership Training. The Caribbean Women in Leadership is an NGO which was launched in August 2023. Now, this morning's simulated parliamentary sitting, the participants will be debating or present two gender-based motions of major concern at this morning's sitting. The gender-based motions I am not privy to as yet, but as we stay tuned, as you follow along with us, we'll discover what they are. The objective of this morning's sitting is to provide training for women interested in pursuing political office, as well as female party members and women who support political campaigns. It also has a second objective, which is to discuss strategies for overcoming barriers to women's full participation in politics and decision making. The sitting will also allow the strengthening of the participants' understanding of their responsibility as an office holder and their role in advancing gender equality in national decision-making spaces. It will also prepare women to effectively navigate the political landscape. So, at present, there are about, I think, 17 members who will be taking part in the debate. We are not sure yet of the proposing side and the opposing side, but all of this will unfold in a while, I'm sure. Earlier on, the Speaker of the House had come in, and she is not here. She has disappeared for a little while, but we are expecting to start shortly. I must say it is a bit hot in here, as the AC is not functioning, and so there will be a lot of fanning and a bit of discomfort, but we are hoping that this morning's exercise will just shed light, raise awareness on the issues that affect women in politics. It will also create strategies,
Madam Speaker.
And
I think it
provide avenues for women to overcome those hurdles in their pursuit of politics and political office. So once again, my name is Virgil Leonti and welcome to the National Television Network. Do stay with us for this mock parliamentary sitting by the Caribbean Women in Leadership Training.
Okay.
Eternal Father, we come before you, thanking you for this great privilege to be in the House of Parliament. As we come before you, O Lord, I present my colleagues and other ministers of government in your hands, O Lord. I pray that you give us the wisdom, the understanding, and the proper behavior and professionalism that we can speak on the people's behalf. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Announcements. Let me take this opportunity to congratulate every woman seated in this prestigious chamber today, whether at the round table, in the gallery, or following this session online, who has been an active part of this 10-week Women in Politics Training Initiative. Caribbean Women in Leadership St. Lucia National Chapter successfully launched its inaugural Women in Politics training on Tuesday, August 29, 2023, which culminates today, Wednesday, November 8, 2023, with our simulated parliamentary sitting. With the guidance of well-renowned women facilitators from St. Lucia and the wider Caribbean, and two gentlemen, various topics were explored, such as transformational leadership, gender in governance, local government legislation, and parliament procedures during this period. The intention was to boost female empowerment and to provide the practical tools necessary in ensuring the success of women interested in pursuing a political career. May this be a stepping stone forward for us all as a nation as we celebrate the women who have come before us and who are presently representing us in distinguished yet sometimes laborious political roles, while we concurrently call for more female involvement in the domestic and international affairs of our country, St. Lucia. Before we commence, I would like to announce the absence of Honorable Government Member for Denrisau, who is off island on state business, and also the absence of Opposition Member for Mikutsau, who too is out of island for government business. Statements from ministers. One, two, three. Minister for Youth Development and Sports.
Good day, everybody. I would like to recognize the commencement of National School Sports island-wide. We'd like to encourage our students at all institutions to be active this year. Also, I'd like to encourage the public to support each student at their institution in each and every sport. Thank you.
Minister for Tourism.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this morning my statement is on our Village Tourism Initiative. Today I used the opportunity provided to update on Helen's political party's plans to apply a gender lens in amending the initiative going forward. Madam Speaker, by the end of July 2023, St. Lucia had recorded a 12% growth of stay arrivals. This is 90% of the stay arrivals for 2019, a year that recorded $1.6 billion in revenue. The HPP government has made it a priority to ensure that locals feel the maximum benefits of sharing our island with tourists, and will continue to focus heavily on village tourism. As former Minister of Tourism, Information, Broadcasting, Culture and Creative Industries, Dr. Ernest Hille noted, and I quote, "Community tourism is a very powerful concept, one that empowers our people to be able to earn more and creates livelihoods, but also means they have a stake in it. We believe the tourism industry should incorporate all aspects of St. Lucian life, We are not supportive of an all-inclusive concept. We don't believe visitors should be confined to a resort or hotel. Therefore, HPP, the government of the Helens Progressive Party, continues to support the success of village tourism by providing training and marketing support to make the most of existing initiatives. We also create avenues for the development of new initiatives. We have provided significant support through loans and grants to St. Lucians to create tourism experiences. Of course, a significant amount has been to women entrepreneurs. Naturally, Madam Speaker, as our women possess skills in various areas such as farming, craft, cooking, fisheries, hairdressing, etc., they make up a substantial percentage of the entrepreneurs within the sphere of village tourism, as do gender diverse people, and of course, people of different sexual orientation. However, my government, Madam Speaker, has committed to a focus on the challenge of gender inclusivity as we seek to bring additional value to the village tourism sector. Beginning next month, we will establish a gender inclusive policy that will underpin all village tourism initiatives. That will include a non-discriminatory clause written into this policy to declare that we do not discriminate on the basis of sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, or sex characteristics. It will mandate training initiatives for gender diverse people, taking into account the microaggressions and discrimination that result in many not completing formal education. We will have a particular invitation for applications by gender diverse people in communities across St. Lucia, and a call funds for development of tourism products specific to women and gender diverse people. We will encourage businesses within the tourism sector to display non-discriminatory signs as well. This will not only ensure the most marginalized are assisted in being part of the tourism industry and contributing to the diversity within the tourism industry, diversity of products as well as representation, but it will ensure a more progressive and inclusive society, and that has proven to be in line with more prosperous and peaceful countries. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Minister for Gender Relations.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My ministry would like to acknowledge here today, first of all, the Civil St. Lucia chapter on this momentous occasion of the Women in Politics program, which focuses on building leadership skills and empowerment of women who are aspiring to be politicians and future leaders. It's not an easy job here today, but it's a testimony of your willpower to create impactful change as women in society. So well done, and congratulations to Karen, Nyla, and the Civil team, and of course to everyone here today. I would also like to acknowledge and mention the recently held Parliamericas conference, which concluded a two-day multi-stakeholder dialogue session jointly organized with the UN Women Multi-Country Office Caribbean and the Parliament of St. Lucia. The event focused on exploring sustainable development issues from a gender equality lens, and this brought together parliamentarians from the Caribbean and representatives of Caribbean national gender machineries, as well as representatives of various civil society and international organizations working on various sustainable goals. Madam Speaker, we are in November, and when we think of November, we know it's a time to recognize 16 days of activism. And as the Minister of Gender Relations, I would like to proudly acknowledge the 16 days of activism from November 25th to December 10th. And as you may know, December 10th is Human Rights Day. The theme for 16 days is Unite, Invest to Prevent Violence Against Women and Girls. My ministry has already started working with various CSOs as we move into the 16 days, and we are happy to note that this year we are coming along with programs and projects, some of which have already begun launch. Example, the organization Unite Caribbean and the French Ambassador and Embassy. Soon you'll be seeing some billboards with messages around the island on the message, Ending Gender-Based Violence. And last but not least, we must not forget the men among our midst, and who are doing great things in society. So we celebrate International Men's Day on the 19th of August. And the theme this year is Zero Male Suicide. And we have noticed throughout the years where we see an increase in male suicide. So I think the theme is very fitting. Let's continue to instill great values in our men so that their contributions can create positive impact for generations to come. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Minister for Commerce.
Good morning, Madam Speaker. I rise this morning very proud of every woman in this room. Every woman in this room, we are all leaders, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we know that small businesses are the lifeblood of the St. Lucian economy. The small business's performance is the performance of every household and also impacts our economy. So it is in this vein that I would like to congratulate my ministry, the Ministry of Commerce, on its recent collaboration with the OAS to enable small businesses to receive. There are 50 small businesses that receive point-of-sale machines as part of their collaboration with the Organization of American States, Madam Speaker. And this is momentous, Madam Speaker. A point-of-sale machine, for those of us who are not as business savvy, is a machine that basically captures all of the sales, like when you go to Super J, for example, Madam Speaker. So 50 small businesses get this computerized technology, which will help them keep track of inventory, keep track of profit, and properly record their performance. And I think that's an excellent initiative. I think it will go a long way in assisting the small businesses of this country, because again, the small businesses within St. Lucia is the lifeblood of our economy and can help us on the road to prosperity. And so I would like to congratulate my ministry. I would also like to congratulate the men on International Men's Day. I would like to thank them for their contributions, one way or the other, towards female empowerment. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Minister for Equity.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honorable members, today, as the Minister for Equity, Social Justice and Empowerment, I believe it is important to reiterate the mission of the Ministry of Equity, Social Justice and Empowerment, which is to promote, support, and facilitate the participation, development, and organization of our people in utilizing their resources to effect self-directed change towards the economic, social, cultural, political, and spiritual advancement of themselves, their communities, and the nation. Today, I would also like to mention that the Ministry of Equity, in partnership with the St. Lucia Conservation Fund, SLUNCF, and the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund, held an initiative that benefited vulnerable families in the community of Fowashu, where they underwent months of theoretical and practical training in the education on crop cultivation techniques for small-scale gardening. This skill will allow these families to capitalize on the skill to generate various streams of income and promote self-sustainability. Thank you.
Minister for Finance.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I wish today to recognize the cricketers from my constituency of Miku North, who has made it to the finals of the SPL T20 2023. Madam Speaker, I would like to urge everybody from Miku North to head down to the Darren Sami Cricket Grounds on Friday as we take on Sufra in the finals. And of course, Madam Speaker, I do expect that we come home with the trophy in Miku North. Madam Speaker, as you are well aware, we have had some heavy rainfalls over the past few weeks, and my constituents from Margaretwood were affected with some flooding last week, Madam Speaker. I would like to reassure them that I am aware of the situation and that my government is doing everything we can to better the situation. Madam Speaker, I would also like to take this opportunity to recognize the St. Lucia National Youth Council under the leadership of Ms. Rizyanika Jaba-William, who are currently undergoing a youth leadership course where, Madam Speaker, over 500 young St. Lucians would have registered for the course. And tomorrow we have the final class will be held tomorrow, Madam Speaker. And to those students, I say thank you and continue the good work that you are doing. And we do look forward to a graduation ceremony for that course, Madam Speaker. I thank you.
Motions. Honorable Prime Minister, Minister for Finance, Economic Development and Youth Economy.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move the following motion standing in my name. Whereas the increasing cost of living in St. Lucia has placed a financial burden on many citizens. Whereas a livable wage is a human right recognized by the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Whereas addressing income inadequacy will improve the standard of living, stimulate economic growth, and decrease income inequality. Be it resolved that the government of St. Lucia establish a livable minimum wage which has taken into consideration the maintenance of a decent standard of living by ensuring that the basic economic factors such as the cost of food, housing, healthcare, and other basic necessities are within the reach of poor and marginalized. Be it further resolved that the government of St. Lucia, in consultation with key stakeholders, conducts regular reviews of a livable wage to ensure that the amounts are adjusted accordingly to reflect any significant changes in the economy, given that the economy is subject to external economic events. That the government of St. Lucia must ensure that there are sufficient economic measures to assist businesses, particularly the small and micro enterprises, to transition to a new wage structure. Considering the impact this transition will have on the island's economy, there is a need to enhance and expand the existing education and vocational training programs to equip more St. Lucians with the new skills and opportunities to encourage new forms of employment, thereby stirring and expanding economic growth. Madam Speaker, the resolution being presented this morning is one of paramount importance to St. Lucians who are eagerly waiting to hear this presentation. It has been the topic of discussion in majority of our homes and on the streets by our citizens. This morning, as I delve into the environment of livable minimum wage and the cost of living, I urge my members and those in the opposing side to take a moment and ponder on this reality that is before us in those trying times. Madam Speaker, as Prime Minister of this country, I heard the constant cries of my citizens on the cost of items at the various stores, Madam Speaker. Just last week, Madam Speaker, for example, we saw citizens calling to boycott Marcy due to the exorbitant prices of seabed tuna fish and Pine Hill juice, Madam Speaker. The upscale of those prices sent citizens in uproar, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as I understand the pleas of my people, I must state that we are not the only ones in the Caribbean region crying for help at those prices. You see, Madam Speaker, just recently the world went through the health crisis of COVID-19, where the entire world was affected by this health issue. Now that we have overcome this health situation and the world is trying to get back to normal, the 3 years of pause is now the crisis that is being felt. We need to understand, Madam Speaker, when there is economic pause by matters such as this crisis will occur and the burdens will be felt. I say this just to mention, Madam Speaker, that our Caribbean counterparts are no different from us. As a developing state who are not in control of majority of the items that are imported, we will see significant increase in the cost of products that we consume. Madam Speaker, according to the IMF, and I quote, it is projected that inflation of 2022 to be 5.7% in advanced economies and 8.7% in emerging and developing economies. High inflation is affecting regions around the world, and the Caribbean is no different. The reasons for those serious rise in price in the Caribbean should not be a surprise to us due to various international factors that surround it. One of those main factors is the international supply chain constraints. What it simply means, Madam Speaker, is that those products we consume require materials from other countries and the world to create the end product, Madam Speaker. Due to us having to source them all over the world, Madam Speaker, you find it more costly now than even before COVID-19. Also, Madam Speaker, not forgetting the increase in fuel prices, which plays a tremendous role in manufacturing sectors in other seasons for the increase in prices. Madam Speaker, let me be the first to say this, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I think that this sitting of the House will be one of the shortest in St. Lucia's history, Madam Speaker. I wish to hear the opposition, Madam Speaker. If the opposition cares like they indicate they care about the people of the country, Madam Speaker, how can you oppose a bill that every St. Lucian will benefit from, Madam Speaker? And Madam Speaker, this is why we are here today. The women, the trustworthy, caring women of the Helen's Progressive Party came to this house today to start the process, Madam Speaker. And I say to start the process of bringing relief to them. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable members, the question is that the government of St. Lucia establish a livable minimum wage which has taken into consideration the maintenance of a decent standard of living by ensuring that the basic economic factors such as the cost of food, housing, healthcare, and other basic necessities are within the reach of poor and marginalized. Be it further resolved that the government of St. Lucia, in consultation with key stakeholders, conduct regular reviews of the livable wage to ensure that the amounts are adjusted accordingly to reflect any significant changes in the economy, given that the economy is subject to external economic events. That the government of St. Lucia must ensure that there are sufficient economic measures to assist businesses, particularly the small and micro enterprises, to transition to the new wage structure. Considering the impact this transition will have on the island's economy, there is a need to enhance and expand the existing education and vocational training programs to equip more St. Lucians with the new skills and opportunities to encourage new forms of employment, thereby stirring and expanding economic growth. Minister for Youth Development.
A pleasant good morning to my fellow House members, constituents of Castries Southeast, and the general St. Lucian population. Madam Speaker, before I begin, I'd like to define a few terms in this House. 1. As defined by Merriam-Webster, a wage is a payment usually of money for labor or services, usually according to the contracts and on an hourly, daily, or piecework basis. Whereas a salary is a fixed compensation paid by monthly or annually. 2. Minimum wage. According to the International Labour Organization, a minimum wage is defined as a minimum amount of remuneration that an employer is required to pay wage earners for a work performed during a given period, which cannot be reduced by collective agreement or an individual contract. 3. A livable wage, defined by the Living Wage for Families campaign, is the hourly amount a family needs to cover the basic expenses. These expenses include food, clothing, housing, childcare, transportation, healthcare, and health and life insurance. Madam Speaker, I 100% stand behind this government's motion to systematically improve the cost of living for all citizens by implementing a livable minimum wage. The purpose of a minimum wage is to protect workers against unduly low pay. They help ensure a just and equitable share to all. and a minimum living wage to all those employed and in the need of such protection. Living minimum wages can also be one element of a policy to overcome poverty and reduce inequality, including those between men and women, by promoting the right to equal remuneration for work of equal value. Madam Speaker, I believe for this initiative to be successfully implemented, this government needs to encourage businesses to implement employment benefits. These employment benefits can be and should include traveling allowance, health insurance, and skills development, which would alleviate on the initial costs that would be added to the direct wage. Madam Speaker, this government is also in the process of drafting policy that speaks on a national health insurance that would aid in the reduction of poverty and poor health and the health of employees. Madam Speaker, as the Minister of Youth, we know that children are unable to care for themselves, and they rely on their parents to provide the basic necessities and invest in their future. It is evident that children who grow in poor, low-income households have a poorer outcome than children who grow up with enough money to meet their basic needs and savings for their future. According to UNICEF, more than 60% of children and adolescents in St. Lucia live in a household that depends on earnings of low-wage single-parent workers. Madam Speaker, study also shows and have proven that implementing a living minimum wage would lead to happier, healthier, and more successful children. A higher wage also means decreasing stress levels in children, improving relationships with parents, and a stronger chance of upward mobility. All too often, despite their best efforts, Madam Speaker, parents' low wages may not be enough to do well by their kids. Madam Speaker, just let me add that this can be a strategy we can use to alleviate the crime situation in St. Lucia. Madam Speaker, a great way to invest in the well-being of St. Lucian children is the implementation of a livable minimum wage. Given the rising cost of living and the stagnant wage growth, there has never been a greater time and a need for change. Madam Speaker, as I end, I would like to state that a living minimum wage system should not be used or be seen as an isolated bill or motion, but should be designed in a way to supplement and reinforce social and employment policies. I thank you.
Minister for Commerce? Sorry.
Good morning, Madam Speaker, honorable members of the House, and the constituents of Castries North. I am a Leclerc girl at heart, so I would like to tell everyone in my constituency good morning. This morning, Madam Speaker, it is my pleasure to stand in this honorable House of Parliament in the People's House as the member for Castries North and Minister for Commerce, Manufacturing, Business Development, Cooperatives, and Consumer Affairs. I also congratulate the Honorable Prime Minister and my cabinet colleagues for having the foresight to enact this very important and timely piece of legislation, a bill which will go a long way in easing the squeeze that many St. Lucian families and households feel with the current cost of living crisis, which grips not only our society, but also other countries in our region and internationally. Madam Speaker, this legislation, as I have said before, is very needed and timely, because according to the World Bank, between 20 to 25% of households in St. Lucia live below the poverty wage. Madam Speaker, 20 to 25% may not seem like a very big number, but for me, Madam Speaker, and I'm sure for all of us, any family that has to live below the poverty level, beneath the poverty. Okay, Madam Speaker. Any family having to live below the poverty level is one family too many, Madam Speaker. And so for this reason, Madam Speaker, I believe, and we all believe, that this piece of legislation is very timely. Let's take a little bit of a closer glimpse at this. This means that a significant number of households in St. Lucia live on $5.50 per day. Madam Speaker, think of this for one moment. According to Global Citizen, a family of four's estimated monthly costs, that's a family of four, stand at around 8,000 EC dollars per month. Okay, Madam Speaker? And a single person's monthly income is around $2,366.70, Madam Speaker. Now, Madam Speaker, let's just go back to that number for one moment, Madam Speaker. $5.50 per day, Madam Speaker. But, Madam Speaker, in our current environment, a tin of tuna fish is more than $4.50, Madam Speaker. A tin of tuna fish is $6, Madam Speaker. And with, let's say, a hand of green fig at the market, a hand of green fig is another $5, Madam Speaker. So we see that several of our citizens have to subsist beneath the level that they need to. Okay. Madam Speaker, also, the statistics I've just mentioned represent only a snapshot and only a small percentage, and it only gives us a small perspective on the significant challenge that households face within St. Lucia. Since the world economy is in the grips of a cost of living crisis, this crisis has been aggravated further, Madam Speaker, by external shocks, Madam Speaker. For example, the instability within the Middle East, the war in Russia, and these factors continue to drive up the price of oil, energy, which also contribute towards the cost of most of our commodities within the economy, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, food, electricity, gas, and the price of all other commodities have been soaring within the economy, Madam Speaker. And this is not a situation that we think is tenable, which is why a minimum wage will not necessarily take into account everyone, Madam Speaker. However, the most vulnerable in our society will be assisted, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, we know that it is very important to create equity amongst our citizens, Madam Speaker, to help those which are most vulnerable, Madam Speaker, in order to address the concerns that they have. Madam Speaker, the soaring cost of commodities is of grave concern to me as Minister and by extension the Ministry of Commerce. Madam Speaker, my ministry, through the Consumer Affairs Department, continues to monitor the cost of basic commodities, Madam Speaker. We also plan to work hand in hand with the Inland Revenue Department as well as the VAT Office, Madam Speaker, to monitor the taxes and their application to the cost of commodities, Madam Speaker. So this won't be used necessarily as an excuse for the soaring rise in prices, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we also will monitor specifically the cost of basic commodities such as groceries. We have every intention through the Consumer Affairs Department to monitor and collaborate with the key players in the retail sector to assist them with mitigating the effects of the rise in prices and to try to help them to deliver value for money to our populace, to our hard-working citizens, Madam Speaker. Also, Madam Speaker, permit me, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this legislation is necessary indeed. Particularly close to my heart as MP for Castries North is the assistance that will be offered to households which have small children, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we know that the children are the future to our development, Madam Speaker. And families, Madam Speaker, who cannot take care of their smallest members, Madam Speaker, I think, Madam Speaker, are the most vulnerable, Madam Speaker. The social assistance and support structure is necessary to assist young families to nurture their children, to assist those who have become unemployed, and to provide the needed social support. Madam Speaker, the minimum wage bill is quite timely indeed. It is vital for St. Lucians to earn a wage which allows them to meet their basic needs. Madam Speaker, I also wish to encourage our stakeholders, Madam Speaker, the Employers Federation, and the owners of businesses, both small and large, to work hand in hand with the government to honor the commitment we are making to the people of St. Lucia. Madam Speaker, complaints may arise from certain quarters that the increasing minimum wage may be too burdensome and will contribute too much to the increasing cost of labor, Madam Speaker. However, I encourage them to remember, Madam Speaker, according to our luminary that I admire, Brother George Odlum, may he rest in peace, a son of the soil, and he's also a political luminary, St. Lucia as a small nation, dimensionally in economic terms, however, when it comes to human resources, we can match any nation in the world. That is how he described St. Lucia at one of the meetings at the UN, Madam Speaker. I encourage our business owners to see this minimum wage bill and the commitment that they make to paying St. Lucians a decent wage as an investment to the productivity of their businesses. A household which can meet its basic needs can offer employees that will be healthier and more productive. A more productive workforce leads also to a boost in the overall productivity of small businesses as a whole. If we look at this legislation as an investment in the people of St. Lucia, as a pledge of faith in their potential, capabilities, and future, then, Madam Speaker, it will not feel so burdensome. Madam Speaker, this brings to mind again the words of the eloquent luminary, Brother George Odlum. He explained that we as leaders, those in the elite and privileged classes, cannot be at ease or enjoy the fruits of their labor, the fruits of their privileges, and know that the ordinary man's basic needs are left unmet, Madam Speaker.
Minister of Commerce, you have 2 minutes left.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This, Madam Speaker, can lead to the needs of the common man can lead to several social and economic ills which will negatively impact the quality and standard of living in St. Lucia. It is needed, timely, and important, and it will go a long way in advancing the development and survival of our country and our economy. I thank you so much, and I hope that you enjoyed my presentation, Madam Speaker.
Member for Cashry Central.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to speak on the motion to systematically improve the cost of living for all citizens. May I let it be known, I am in full support of this motion, and I believe that it is essential that we take action to address the rising cost of living in St. Lucia. As the representative for Cashry Central, I have seen firsthand the impact that is having on my constituents. Many people are struggling to make ends meet, and they are forced to make difficult choices about how to allocate their limited resources. This motion, Madam Speaker, is important for a number of reasons. First, it recognizes that a livable wage is a human right. Everyone deserves to be able to earn enough money to meet their basic needs, and this includes food, housing, healthcare, and other essentials. Madam Speaker, secondly, the motion acknowledges that addressing income inadequacy will improve the standard of living, stimulate economic growth, and decrease income inequality. When people have more money to spend, they are able to buy more goods and services, which in turn creates jobs and boosts the economy. Additionally, reducing income inadequately leads to a more just and equitable society. Madam Speaker, the motion also calls for the government to establish a livable minimum wage and to conduct regular reviews of this wage to ensure that it is keeping up with the cost of living. Madam Speaker, this is an important step as it will help to ensure that everyone has a fair chance to meet their basic needs. Madam Speaker, however, I have some concerns about the motion as it is currently written. Firstly, it does not specify how the government will determine what a livable minimum wage is. This is a critical issue, as the amount of money needed to meet basic needs varies depending on the cost of living in a particular area. Secondly, Madam Speaker, the motion does not mention the impact that a minimum wage increase could have on businesses. It is important to recognize that some businesses may struggle to afford to pay the employees a higher wage. Therefore, it is important to implement the minimum wage increase in a way that minimizes the impact on businesses, particularly small and micro enterprises. Madam Speaker, thirdly, the motion does not address the specific needs of women. Women are more likely to work in low-wage jobs, and they are more likely to be single parents. Therefore, it is important, Madam Speaker, to ensure that any minimum wage increase takes into account the unique needs of women. To address these concerns, Madam Speaker, I propose the following amendments to the motion. The motion should specify that the government will use a data-driven approach to determine a livable minimum wage. This should include considering the cost of living in different parts of the country, as well as the needs of different groups of people, such as women and single parents. Madam Speaker, the motion should recognize the potential impact that a minimum wage increase could have on businesses. It should call for the government to provide support to businesses, particularly small and micro enterprises, to help them transition to the new wage structure. Madam Speaker, the motion should specifically address the needs of women. It should call for the government to develop policies and programs to support women in the workforce, such as affordable childcare and paid parental leave. With these amendments, Madam Speaker, I believe that this motion will be a strong step towards improving the cost of living for all St. Lucians. In conclusion, I urge my colleagues to support this motion with the amendments that I have proposed. Together, we can take a step towards building a more just and equitable society for all St. Lucians. I encourage all to lay down your parties right now, because this is not time for division. I leave you with this Bible quote: "Blessed are the poor, that they shall inherit the earth and all its riches." Let's come together and do this for St. Lucia. I thank you.
Minister of Equity.
Madam Speaker, honorable members of the House, my constituents of Choiseul and the populace of St. Lucia, good day. Please permit me to adopt the protocols that have already been established. Today, we are here to discuss a very important topic, and that is the livelihood of the people of St. Lucia. We have come a long way from the barter system, where people traded one thing for another. The system that is currently in use is what we would call a fiat system. Let me reiterate, it is called a fiat system. This system operates using paper bills or bank balances to purchase goods and services. I make this reference to show the importance of money as it relates to the livelihoods of St. Lucians, and that when we sing the pun, money makes the world go round. It is not a joke. It is indeed fact, and for this reason, I am in support of the current government for the implementation of a livable minimum wage policy. Madam Speaker, today I will be informing you all on the difference between a livable minimum wage and a livable wage, the pros and cons of implementing a livable minimum wage policy, identifying areas of opportunity within the policy, providing a few possible solutions, and culminating stating the importance of financial literacy and education amidst the implementation of this policy. Before I begin, I need to note that while I am in support of the livable minimum wage policy, I must remain unbiased in the judgment of said policy to operate out of the best interest of my constituents in Choiseul and the wider St. Lucian populace. As I get into the meat and bones of this presentation, a few things must be noted. As it stands, there is no implemented minimum wage in St. Lucia. However, it has become a custom for the baseline wage payment to be marked at roughly $4.50 EC. Without digging further into this, we here understand this is in no way, shape, or form feasible to substantiate the cost of living when you have a can of tuna fish being sold for $6.25 EC, Madam Speaker. This wage rate falls short of providing a decent standard of living for our fellow St. Lucians. The cost of living in our country has been steadily rising, and the current minimum wage is no longer sufficient to cover basic necessities like housing, food, healthcare, and education. Now, when you hear the phrases livable minimum wage and livable wage, you may think to yourself, what are the differences and why is this so important to know? Allow me to shed some light on this. A livable minimum wage and livable wage are related concepts with similarities and differences. Both of them aim to provide a livable income to address poverty. While a legal framework mandates a livable minimum wage, a livable wage is a broader concept that is not legally enforced and is based on organizational discretion. Employers must pay legally mandated livable minimum wage, while they may choose to pay the livable wage voluntarily, and this is very important. As with everything, Madam Speaker, we are not perfect people, and whether it be by nature or consequence, the things we do are not perfect. However, we can strive for perfection. And by highlighting the following pros and cons, this is how we achieve it. Implementing a livable minimum wage will assist with reducing poverty by providing low-wage workers with a more reasonable income to meet their basic needs. Increase wages for low-income workers, which means more money will be spent in our local economy, which in turn supports local businesses and job growth. Implementing a livable minimum wage will result in improved living standards as individuals and families can afford better housing, healthcare, and education. And lastly, reduce dependence on government and social services. After highlighting these positives, we can see some of the value that implementing a livable minimum wage can have on the economy of St. Lucia. But with everything, there is always the opposite to consider. And some of those are high labor costs and the possibility of said costs being passed on to consumers, which leads to inflation, reduced employment opportunities, especially for those in labor-intensive industries. Some small business, as the opposition leader mentioned, may struggle to afford higher wages and might be forced to reduce their workforce or increase prices. The abrupt implementation of a significantly higher minimum wage can disrupt business operations, leading to uncertainty and potential economic instability. Lastly, and which is one of our biggest concerns, is reduced competitiveness, meaning industries that heavily rely on low-skilled labor may become less competitive if they have to pay higher wages. This can lead to businesses moving their operations to countries with lower labor costs or automating their processes, potentially reducing job opportunities. Bearing in this mind, honorable members, these pros and cons that I've highlighted for you, the impact of this livable minimum wage policy is beneficial. Madam Speaker, the opposition may argue that the policy lacks specificity and in certain areas, but we have identified these oversights and proposed potential solutions. I have listed 7 opportunities and possible solutions to bring forth to the House today. 1, phased implementation. A gradual increase in the minimum wage can assist in mitigating the potential negative impact on small businesses, allowing them time to adapt. 2, subsidies and tax incentives. The government can provide support to small businesses and employers through subsidies or taxes, as mentioned, employers through subsidies or tax incentives to help offset the increased labor costs. Monitoring and evaluation, which I know is a huge concern for us. Implement a monitoring and evaluation body that oversees and monitors the effects of a livable minimum wage while providing regular reports and assisting with making adjustments when necessary to help address potential challenges. 4, tax credits. Offering tax credits or deductions to businesses that pay the livable minimum wage. These credits can help offset the additional labor costs and incentivize compliance with the new wage regulations. 5, public-private partnerships. Encourage partnerships between governments and businesses to create job training and placement programs which can help individuals transition to higher paying jobs. 6, sector-specific support.
Minister of Equity, you have 2 minutes left.
According to standing order standard.
Sorry. Minister of Youth Development.
Madam Speaker, I wish to evoke Standing Order 4210 to allow the member an additional 5 minutes to complete her presentation.
Honorable members, the question is that Standing Order 3210 be invoked so as to allow Minister of to allow an extra 5 minutes to the, let me see, member for Choiseul. I now put the question. As many as of the opinion say aye. As many of contrary opinions say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and Honorable Member for Youth and Sports. So as I will continue. Number 6 would be sector-specific support. Consider tailored measures for industry or sectors that are more affected by minimum wage increases, such as the service of hospitality industries. This could include, but is not limited to, the above-mentioned tax incentives and subsidies or transition plans. Number 7 will be training and skill development programs. Investments in workforce development programs to enhance skills of employees, making them more productive and valuable to their employers. This can help mitigate the adverse effects of increased labor costs by increasing the overall value of the workforce. As policymakers, we do need to carefully consider these factors when designing and implementing minimum wage policies to strike a balance between supporting workers and ensuring the overall health of the economy. So far, I hope that the information I have shared with you all has been enlightening. But I believe that I will be of a disservice to the people of Choiseul, my fellow St. Lucians, my government, if I do not highlight the importance of financial literacy and education. I have stated over and over my support for the implementation of a livable minimum wage policy that benefits the employees, employers, and citizens of St. Lucia. I must note that this comes with great financial responsibility on the part of the beneficiaries. Implementing this policy, Madam Speaker, would mean an increase in the spending power of the population. More money does not equate to a reduction in poverty. I need to say this again. More money does not equate a reduction in poverty. On the contrary, it may well increase poverty. How, you may ask? Due to financial illiteracy. To mitigate this and shift the mindset as it relates to finance and investment, the baseline for the implementation of this policy would be a financial literacy and education campaign focused on improving knowledge on investment and investment tools to assist with generational wealth building and self-sustainability. In conclusion, Madam Speaker, the time has come for St. Lucians to act and implement a livable minimum wage. This is not just an economic issue, it is a moral imperative. We have a responsibility to ensure that every citizen can live a life of dignity and opportunity. By addressing the cons through careful planning and embracing financial literacy education, we can make this a reality and create a more equitable and prosperous future for all St. Lucians. I thank you.
Member for Denry North.
Madam Speaker, as I rise to address this honorable House, I would like to clarify that being in opposition does not mean that you always oppose everything in the House. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the people of Denry North for making it possible for me to stand in this honorable House today. I just want to highlight two persons, Credentia Hippolyte, chairperson of the constituency group, and Sabina Jules, who is the women's officer for Denry North. Mamai Denry North, moi vle di bonjour. Bonjour, Mamai Goivière, Gonravine, Richfort, Dernier Rivière, Cadette, Despine, Lapel, Olion, La Rissous. Moi vle di bonjour because c'est vous qui mettez moi en house la jodia. Madam Speaker, as we all know, the Denry North constituency is a farming constituency. We have persons who have small businesses. We have lots of policemen, teachers, construction workers, hotel employees, healthcare workers, and of course we have persons who travel to work, both to the south in Vieux-Fort and those who go to the north to Castries, who come to Castries. Some work 6 days a week, 5 days a week, depending on the job. Madam Speaker, as I rise in support of the motion before us in this honorable House, I want to look at Clause A, which states that, and I quote, the government of St. Lucia, in consultation with key stakeholders, conduct regular reviews of the livable wage to ensure that the amounts are adjusted accordingly to reflect any significant changes in the economy, given that the economy is subject to external economic events. Madam Speaker, as I sat there, I thought I would get a little more clarification, especially where it says conduct regular reviews. How often are we conducting these reviews? Every 6 months, because you said regular. As you say, tous les 6 mois, tous les l'année, tous les 2 l'année. That is not stated. We also want to look at who are the key stakeholders we are referring to. I don't think that this was clearly stated in the motion before us this morning. I do not think this will be welcomed by, although I heard the previous speaker talking about, Madam Speaker.
Member for Castries, no?
Madam Speaker, I rise on a point of order. The honourable member is misleading the House, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I informed during my presentation as Minister for Commerce that the stakeholders of this bill would be the small businesses, the large businesses, and the members of those communities, Madam Speaker, and also the member, one of our other members, Madam Speaker, presented several statistics in line which address some of the concerns the honourable member has. So, Madam Speaker, I wish to suggest that the document be made a document of the House, Madam Speaker.
Sorry. Yes, thank you for that clarification. However, I still think that we should know exactly who are the other individuals who will form part of that group. Madam Speaker, Denrenough, like I said, is a constituency where we have a lot of hard-working individuals. And I don't think when you're traveling, you see persons just loitering or sitting, just waiting for a handout. We welcome that livable wage, but we want to know how best will it help the mother who is there waiting or who works with the NICE program. What is in it for her who is sending her children to school? She has 3-4 children to send to school. How is that helping the mother who does not have as much income to play with? How much income will be left in her pocket? This is what we want to address here today. The young people of Denrenough, I know, will benefit, stand to benefit, especially when we look at the clause here, the part there that says, considering the impact this transition will have on the island's economy, there is a need to enhance and expand the existing educational and vocational training programs to equip more St. Lucians with the new skills and opportunities to encourage new forms of employment, whereby stirring and expanding economic growth, unquote. The young people of Denrenough, Madam Speaker, I know this is a very good opportunity for them, provided that these...
Member for Choiseul.
Madam Speaker, on a point of order, I stand on a point of order and mention that the member for Denrenough is misleading the House. Earlier on, she mentioned how parents, mothers who are part of the NICE program will benefit from a livable minimum wage. Earlier on in my speech, I mentioned that there will be training and skill development programs, which will be an investment in workforce development programs to enhance the skill of employees, making them more productive and valuable to employers. This can help mitigate the adverse effects of increased labor costs by increasing the overall value of their workforce.
What say you, member for Denrenough?
Madam Speaker, I will not yield because the honorable member did not allow me to continue, so she would get exactly what point I was making.
Continue, member for Denrenough.
As I was saying, Madam Speaker, I gladly welcome all the training, all the skills that will be provided.
Member for Micoud North.
Madam Speaker, the member for Denrenough indicated that she's not going to yield. However, the member for Choiseul stood on a point of order and not a point of hallucination, Madam Speaker. I thank you.
Thank you for the clarification, member for Micoud North. Please continue.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Anyway, Madam Speaker, mapakai kite sa chenwe there. I will continue with my presentation. Thank you again, honorable member for Denrenough, for Micoud North. Madam Speaker, as I was saying,
member for Castries North.
Madam Speaker, I rise on a point of elucidation. If the honorable member will allow me, will permit me.
Madam Speaker, I will not yield.
Continue, member for Denrenough.
Yes, I seem to be losing track with all the distractions that I'm getting here. Anyway, Madam Speaker, I was saying that the training programs to equip young persons or people with the needed skills how will these be executed? And when I say how, I am going back to, yes, we often hear about skills programs, and these are usually in Castries, these are usually in Vieux-Fort, and sometimes in Soufrière. However, when you go into the other constituencies, Madam Speaker, some areas are left out. And this is what I was driving at, this is where I'm going with this. Some areas are left out, and we need to ensure that all places around the island, all communities benefit from this, Madam Speaker. So the training programs, you have programs like TikTok, you have Instagram, which is what our young people like, media platforms that they can go to. Will it be placed there? Will they get information from there? We know sometimes when you call meetings, our young people don't really want to show up. Are we going to have a forum just for them? And how or when are these going to be implemented? Madam Speaker, in as much as I welcome the educational and vocational training to equip St. Lucians with the new skills and opportunities stated by the Minister, Madam Speaker, in Denrinoff, we want to ensure that all persons who require that training benefit from it. Madam Speaker, I would like to hold the government, as I have heard, that they are putting measures
Member for Denry North, you have 2 minutes left.
Thank you,
But
Madam.
before I continue, please allow me to do my job. So if anybody stands on a point of order or elucidation, please allow me to keep the order and to allow people the time to respond before shouting across. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. In ending, Madam Speaker, I just want to ensure that these programs will benefit our persons across the island. Because, like I mentioned, sometimes programs are being facilitated just for a few. Because if we look at, for example, the youth economy and different, sometimes the one child per household to get and a university education. Madam Speaker, sometimes persons who are not qualified at the time, how do we ensure that they get the qualifications to get that program or to get into such programs? And I just want to make one recommendation, that if the government would just take this into consideration, that we, with this livable wage, am I going off time, Madam Speaker? With this livable wage, persons will be able to...
Member for Castries North.
Madam Speaker, I rise on a point of order. Madam Speaker, the member for Denry North is...
Please sit, Denry North.
The member for Denry North is discussing information that is not captured by the bill, Madam Speaker. She discussed just before I rose on a point of order, she was discussing content that was not covered by the bill, Madam Speaker. When she discussed the university, one child per household, and those policies, Madam Speaker, those are not the policies covered within this particular bill, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Castries North. Member for Denry North, could you please continue?
Thank you, Honorable. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just to help out the member for Castries North, Madam Speaker, I don't think that I was going off track when I said that programs should be outlined for persons who are not able to get into what the government is proposing. Just a little clarification on that would help us greatly. At this time, Madam Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity, and I take my seat. Thank you.
Member for Soufrière.
Honorable Speaker, as a representative for Soufrière and part of the HPP party, I want to say that I would clarify some of the things that were said in terms of program that is already in existence. For example, we have the NELU program. It's island-wide. It's established at all schools. So when you register, they have a wide variety of programs from technical skills to soft skills. So it's island-wide. So it means it reaches each constituency. It gives persons to learn a skill to develop themselves. Also, it's at a reduced price compared to other places. We still do have places like NSDC, National Skills Development Center. They have places in Vieux-Fort, in the north, and I don't know for persons, but some of these programs have already changed a lot of lives, and we are going to work on some new programs to establish. Example, as Minister of Tourism, some of the programs we're going to establish struggle going to work from Soufrière to Castries. They sometimes have to leave the communities and come to Castries because they cannot commune, and the livable minimum wage is too low. How you tell me somebody is making $4 an hour and getting
Minister for Ancillary Canneries.
Good morning, Madam Speaker. I stand on a point of order. Just to let the representative for Soufrière, Forsenchak, know that I would like you to just focus on the content of the bill as highlighted by your very own colleague of Castries North.
Okay, you stated that Minister for Mico North, I was just clarifying. Denry North, sorry, I was just clarifying. On the bill and what is already there as Minister of Agriculture, some of the things that we're going to do as a government, we're going to focus on sustainable living. So some of the programs we're going to implement are for schools and hospitals. So we're going to harvest rainwater to reduce some of the bills. So all the schools going to have rainwater. So when it's drought season, we are already preparing for these things so that we're not lacking water and pipes have to be closed for weeks and months. That's one part of it. The second part of it is each school and hospital will have a piece of land allocated to plant and cultivate fruits and vegetables to help provide healthy foods for the children, so when they go to school that they can have a solid healthy meal so they can focus on their education. Also, we're going to provide a new program called Tourism Estate. So as Soufrière is one of the nicest places down in, World Heritage Site, we're going to have a program where persons can come and learn of some of our traditional things we did, like jam, some of our cassava bread, our faring making. So we're going to have a large estate where people can get fruits, vegetables, and it can also bring income for Soufrière and St. Lucia as a whole. We want to decrease on our food import bill. Without healthy foods, what are we as a nation if we cannot eat foods properly? So as Minister for Agriculture, that's some of the things that we are going to be working on. Thank you.
Good day, Madam Speaker, fellow Parliament.
Member for Labrie.
Good day, Madam Speaker, fellow parliamentarians, listening audience, and viewers. I want to address an issue that affects us all, which is the cost of living in our beautiful country, St. Lucia. It's not a secret that many families that are struggling to make ends meet and take a closer look into facts. Firstly, let's talk about the income inequality. Recent data shows 10% of the population in St. Lucia earns around 40% of the total income, while the bottom 40% earns only about 10%. This stark disparity highlights the need to measure to bridge the gap and ensure more equitable distribution of wealth. Let's consider the rising cost of necessities. Over the past 2 years, the cost of housing, food, and healthcare has increased significantly. Families are finding it very hard to afford essentials, putting a strain on their financial well-being. We must address this issue and find ways to make these necessities affordable and accessible to all. Studies conducted by the International Labour Organization, ILO, have shown that implementing a livable wage can have a positive impact on the economy. Research conducted in other countries, such as the United States and Australia, has demonstrated that fair wages lead to an increase in consumer spending, which in turn stimulates local business. It is not the statistics and numbers. It's all about the impact on real people's lives. Many hardworking individuals are struggling to make ends meet, and it's time we take action for that. We also need to address the gender wage gap. It is not the right for women in St. Lucia to earn on average 20% less than men. According to the Caribbean Development Bank, CDB, this disparity is holding women back and preventing them from reaching their full potential. Supporting local business is another crucial aspect of improving the cost of living. By promoting and investing in local entrepreneurship, we can create more job opportunities and stimulate economic growth. This in turn can help alleviate the financial burden on individuals and families. Madam Speaker, enhancing education and vocational training programs is also essential. By equipping organizations and other citizens with the necessary skills and knowledge, we can empower them to secure better paying jobs and improve their quality of life. Education is powerful social and economic mobility. Inclusion, a livable wage is not just about money. It's about human dignity. Let's not forget the power of advocacy in creating a positive change. So, let's stand together, united in our mission to uplift and empower women. Thank you all for your support and for being a part of this important movement. Let's continue to advocate and uplift. Together, we can create a better future for all. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Member for Vieux-Fort South.
Good morning, Speaker. Good morning, my fellow parliamentarians, and to my constituency members, Vieux-Fort South. Good morning. I'm pleased to be here this morning to represent you. I stand before you today not only as the Minister of National Security, but as a concerned citizen. The issue I wish to address, of course, is one that just affects not just the security of our nation, but the very livelihoods of our citizens. It's a matter of predominant importance that we discuss the concept of a livable wage. In a society where safety and security are paramount, it's imperative that we recognize the interconnectedness of national security and the economic well-being of our citizens. when people are struggling to make ends meet, when they are unable to afford basic necessities of life, they become vulnerable to various forms of crime, abuse, and this in turn impacts our national security. My members of parliament, ensuring that our citizens are paid a livable wage is not only a moral obligation, but also a strategic imperative for our nation's security. A livable wage provides economic stability and financial security for our workforce, which in turn has a direct impact on reducing social inequalities and mitigating the potential for social unrest. A livable wage is not just a matter of fairness, but also a matter of national interest. It is about ensuring that our citizens can live dignified lives, free from the constant worry of making ends meet. It's about creating a society where the allure of criminal activities is diminished because people have legitimate opportunities to earn a decent living. The security of our nation is not only just about physical safety and defense. It encompasses the well-being and stability of our society. Madam Speaker, when individuals are struggling to make ends meet due to inadequate wages, it creates a breeding ground for discomfort, for crime, and for societal instability. It is our responsibility to address this issue proactively. My fellow parliamentarians, the concept of a livable wage is not about handouts or dependency on the state. It is about providing our citizens with the means to support themselves and their families independently. It's about enabling them to contribute to the growth and prosperity of our nation, thereby strengthening our nation's security. While the opposition might argue, Madam Speaker, that small businesses can't adapt to the higher minimum wages, we totally understand the need to support these small businesses, which is why the government is thoroughly discussing this matter, as many of these small businesses operate on very thin profit margins. Increasing labor costs can be a burden that they cannot...
Member for Vieux North.
Madam Speaker, I stand on a point of order. It seems to be the posture of the government to assume things that have not been said on this side of the House. I think my leader clearly stated that we support the motion, but the members of government seem to be introducing content to this debate. The member just indicated that we seem to have assumed, or we seem to have said, that small businesses cannot adjust. Madam Speaker, this has not been said on this side of the House, and I would like the member of Vieux South to please retract this statement.
Member for Vieux South, what say you?
It's okay, I retract my statement, just to keep the peace of the House. All right. Therefore, I urge us parliamentarians to consider policies and measures to be set precisely to ensure a livable wage for all our citizens of St. Lucia. This includes working collaboratively with the private sector to set fair and equitable minimum wage standards, amendment of the labor code, providing support to small businesses, and investing in education and job training programs to create a skilled workforce that can access better paying employment opportunities. By taking these steps, we can enhance the economic and social fabric of our nation, thereby reinforcing the very foundation of national security. A livable wage is not just an economic policy. It's a critical component of our national security strategy, and we must treat it as such. The Ministry of National Security is committed to not only safeguarding our nation from the external threats, but also creating an environment where our citizens feel secure in their daily lives. To achieve this, we must address the issue of a livable wage in a comprehensive manner. This involves working in collaboration with other ministries and stakeholders to develop policies that improve working conditions and ensure access to affordable healthcare and education as well. In conclusion, Madam Speaker, a livable wage is not just a matter of economics. It's a matter of national security. It's about creating a society where our citizens are not only safe from external threats, but also secure in their pursuit of happiness and prosperity. Let us work together to ensure that every citizen can enjoy a life that's not just about survival, but about thriving. It's not just an moral obligation. It's a strategic necessity for our nation's security and well-being. I thank you.
Member for Ancillary Canaries.
Madam Speaker, honorable members, viewers on the live stream, and to my sweet constituents of Ancillary Canaries, I say good morning. Well, good afternoon, 12 o'clock on the dot. Today, I stand before you to advocate for a fundamental change. But first, allow me to state that the Progressive Alliance Party is in full support of this motion today, because we believe that building a future of prosperity for all is important, while ensuring that there is sustainable and practical change. Therefore, like I said, I stand today to advocate for the fundamental change that has the power to transform not only our lives in here today, but of course millions of hard-working individuals and families in our country, and that is the implementation of a livable wage. We live in a nation that prides itself on values of fairness, justice, and equality, yet we find ourselves in situations where a significant portion of our fellow citizens are struggling to make ends meet, trapped in a cycle of poverty despite the dedication and hard work in today's society. And this is not the St. Lucia we envision it to be today. A livable wage is not just an economic policy. Like said before, it's a moral imperative. It means that every individual who puts in an honest day's work, Madam Speaker, should be able to provide for themselves and their families without living in fear of any financial instability. It means that dignity, respect, and opportunity should be afforded to all, not just a privileged few. Madam Speaker, implementing a livable wage will reduce inequality as it ensures that the fruits of economic growth are shared more equitably. It will help families avoid the impossible choices between paying for groceries, rent, and even medical bills. It will decrease the strain on our social safety nets, as fewer individuals will need public assistance just to make ends meet. Madam Speaker, of course, critics may argue that the increasing in the minimum wage will harm the businesses and lead to job loss. However, research and real-world examples have consistently shown, that a modest increase in minimum wage does not lead to substantial job loss. In fact, it can stimulate consumer spending, boost local economies, and improve employee morale and productivity. Therefore, Madam Speaker, it is the responsibility of our government to ensure that they engage our businesses and clearly articulate the incentives for companies to ensure that employees are paid a livable wage, both as a business to benefit and to contribute to our sweet country of St. Lucia. Moreover, a livable wage is an investment in our future. It ensures that our children grow up in stable, nurturing environments free from anxiety of poverty. It creates a healthier and more productive workforce. It enforces and fosters a society where people can dream and strive for a better life without being held back by the shackles of poverty. My constituency of Ancillary Canaries, as we all know, has been listed as one of the poorest constituencies in St. Lucia. And so today, of course, we are in full support of this motion. In my constituency of ancillary canneries, the last poverty assessment study revealed that 49.6% were poor households, 5.3% were indigent, and 26.1% were vulnerable. And as I said, that was within the ancillary and canneries district. Therefore, the people of ancillary canneries will definitely appreciate the implementation of a livable wage. Implementing a livable wage in the country is a complex task that requires a multifaceted approach. Therefore, on behalf of the people of ancillary canneries, of course, I would like to make a few suggestions that I believe could just take some immediate actions from now. Number one, Madam Speaker, I heard it all morning, access to education and training. But let's just ensure that we invest in education and vocational training to empower individuals to skills that command higher wages in the job market. And let's just ensure that this is done for everyone. Number two, Madam Speaker, progressive taxation. Nothing so new, of course, that would relate to some of us in here. Implement a progressive tax system to redistribute wealth and fund social programs that support our low-income individuals and families. Number three, Madam Speaker, affordable housing, which is a struggle for my people down in ancillary and canneries. So today I beg that we address the housing crisis by increasing the availability of affordable housing and implementing rent control measures. And number four, our social safety nets.
Member for Castries North.
Madam Speaker, I rise on a point of order. The honourable member is discussing information that is not covered by this motion, Madam Speaker.
Member for ancillary canneries, what say you?
I will, Madam Speaker, thank you. Just to make point that I am just making some suggestions that I believe can impact my sweet constituency of ancillary canneries. So, like I mentioned, our social safety nets, let us strengthen our social safety nets, such as our employment benefits, food assistance, and healthcare to support those who may not immediately benefit from a livable wage. So, as I am about to close, of course, let me just say, it's time to put our values into action. It's time to lift the working poor out of poverty and give them a fighting chance at a better life. And it is time to implement a livable wage in our country. I urge all of us today to support this crucial change for the betterment of our nation. Let us lead by example and show the world that we stand for justice, equality, and a brighter future for all. I thank you.
Member for Castries South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, honourable members of the House, my constituency of Castries South, as I rise, I thank the opposition, PAP, for the support of the motion and for highlighting areas that I am pleased to say Helen's Progressive Party has taken into consideration and will seek to address. So thank you for that. Madam Speaker, I stand here with both my constituency of Castries South and the Ministry of Tourism, Information, Broadcasting, Culture and Creative Industries on my mind. As I speak, I would like you to keep a figure in mind. The figure that was brought up by one of my colleagues, and that figure is $5.50. $5.50 per day. That is the amount of money on which a large percentage of people in St. Lucia actually subsist on currently. $5.50. Please keep that figure in mind. Noting that tourism is our main economic sector and a major contributor to employment in St. Lucia, and noting also that tourism accounts for 65% of St. Lucia's GDP, I put my full support behind this motion to implement a livable minimum wage policy for our small island. Madam Speaker, I remind that we have already recorded tourism growth that exceeds 90% of the stay arrivals for 2019, a year that recorded over $1 billion in revenue. The cruise season is ramping up, and we expect it to be one of the busiest seasons ever. We are currently making every effort to increase airlift, with commitments already from American Airlines, British Airways, JetBlue, and Delta. These efforts are expected to spur growth in the industry going into 2024-2025. However, of the revenue expected to flow into the island from the tourism industry, not enough of this revenue remains on island. And I commend my Prime Minister for this initiative to ensure that more of that money stays on island. While we appreciate the foreign investment into the country, our tourism industry cannot be sustainable without the ordinary man feeling invested in and appreciating the benefits of the hospitality industry. I therefore look forward to my government's commitment to sector-specific support from which the hospitality industry can benefit, especially tax credit to businesses implementing the livable minimum wage and public-private partnerships. I note also that tourism affects real estate, transport, construction, etc., which are all major contributors to our economy, and I anticipate the ripple effect throughout the island. This includes my constituency of Castro South, which, like the rest of the island, has a significant number of female-headed households that depend significantly on tourism. A livable minimum wage will greatly benefit my constituency, especially women and marginalized people, such as the differently abled and the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer community. While we know that women earn 20% less than men, my government also notes the situation of people living with disability and LGBTQ+ people impacted negatively by stigma and discrimination. We therefore laud the plans to implement a monitoring body to review the livable minimum wage and look forward to it including the impact on all people on St. Lucia. In this regard, I would like to note that St. Lucia continues to dominate the wedding and honeymoon markets in tourism, bringing us to the attention of a diverse range of people looking to enjoy a honeymoon or a wedding in paradise. That includes a lot of Caribbean and St. Lucian people who are living in the diaspora and people from around the region who make up almost half of our tourism arrivals. I look forward to the implementation of my government's commitment to put structures in place to ensure that we are not losing millions of dollars of tourism income due to discrimination, and to support access to our tourism sector by all people, especially for females and LGBTQ+ people and those living with disability. Increased spending power will help mitigate issues of poverty and crime in my constituency of Castro South. As we are well aware, especially in 2023, St. Lucia has had significant issues where crime is concerned. Following the constraints of the COVID-19 pandemic, we can understand how some people may have been attracted to certain areas of income based on the constraints that we have been experiencing, and I look forward to this motion and to this bill to help to adjust that. I end by reminding you of the number with which I began, which is $5.50, and to put that more into context, I leave you with the knowledge that some people on St. Lucia own $1 million houses, and own cars and drive cars that cost more than where some people live. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Member for Babonneau.
Honorable Speaker, esteemed parliamentarians, and my cherished constituency of Babonneau. Good morning. Good afternoon. Madam Speaker, contrary to what the member for Micoud North said, I stand to support this motion. Madam Speaker, I stand before you today not just as a representative of my constituency, nor solely as a female voice in this august house, but as a guardian of the future of St. Lucia. But a beautiful land that we have the privilege to call our home. Madam Speaker, the motion before us beckons a profound transformation one that seeks to uplift the dignity of every St. Lucian by establishing a livable wage. However, as we navigate this proposition, we must not be swayed by the winds of optimism without anchoring our ship in the harbor of reality. Madam Speaker, the motion goes to say, whereas the increasing cost of living in St. Lucia has placed a financial burden on many citizens. Madam Speaker, this opening line does not merely state a condition. It screams a painful truth. According to the latest St. Lucia Economic and Social Review, our inflation rates have surged, our consumer price index has climbed, and our people have felt the tightening grip around their livelihoods. Continuing to the motion, Madam Speaker, whereas a livable wage is a human right recognized by the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Madam Speaker, a reminder that our debate today is not just about economies, but about morality, about the kind of society we wish to cultivate. Yes, a livable wage is a human right, but is this right accessible to all, especially to our women, who often juggle multiple roles and yet find themselves at the economic margins? Continuing to the motion, Madam Speaker, whereas addressing income inadequacy will improve the standard of living, stimulate economic growth, and decrease income inequality. Madam Speaker, an assertion we can all agree upon. Yet, let me pose a rhetorical question to the House. Can the proposed resolution in its current form effectively realize the noble objectives without inflicting unintended consequences? Think on it. Madam Speaker, the deficiencies of the motion are not in its spirit, but in its scaffolding. The establishment of a livable minimum wage is not a panacea by itself unless it is supported by robust, pragmatic, and sustainable economic policies. To quote the great Martin Luther King, what good is having the right to sit at a lunch counter if you cannot afford to buy a hamburger? Madam Speaker, let us dissect the resolution. It is said that the government of St. Lucia established a livable minimum wage, which has taken into consideration the basic economic factors. Madam Speaker, the sentiment is commendable, but the devil is in the details. How have we quantified these factors? How have we considered the disparate impact on rural versus urban households? On the women who statistically earn less and are more likely to head single-parent families. Madam Speaker, further, the motion calls for regular reviews of the livable wage to reflect economic changes. But honorable members, how regular is regular? The volatility of external economic events demand not just regular, but timely adjustments, ensuring that we are not just reactive, but proactive in our approach. Moreover, the support, Madam Speaker, for businesses, especially small and micro enterprises, is a crucial element, Madam Speaker. Yet, the question stands, are the proposed economic measures sufficient and ready to be deployed, ensuring that our businesses do not buckle under the weight of this transition? Lastly, the motion speaks to enhancing and expanding education and vocational training programs. A laudable initiative, Madam Speaker, indeed. But let us remember that the access to education is layered with inequity, often leaving women, the differently abled, and those from less affluent backgrounds in the shadow. So, what can we do to strengthen this motion? Madam Speaker, these are my proposals. Madam Speaker, these are my proposals. Firstly, we must establish a clear, data-driven methodology to calculate the livable wage, encompassing not just the cost of living, but also the nuances of our diverse population demographics. Secondly, reviews of the livable wage must be structured to occur at least biannually, with provisions for emergency revisions in case of significant economic shifts. Thirdly, Madam Speaker, a comprehensive package of support for businesses must be developed in tandem with the wage increase, including tax relief, subsidies, and grants. Focus on aiding small and micro enterprises, which are often the backbone of our communities. Lastly, any enhancements of education and vocational training must prioritize inclusivity, ensuring that all St. Lucians, particularly women and marginalized groups, have not just access, but real pathways to seize new opportunities. Madam Speaker, in closing, I remind this esteemed House that our responsibility is not only to those who have elected us, but also to those who will come after us. It is our duty to ensure that the measures we implement today are sustainable and beneficial in the long term. Let us work together, both administrations, to refine this motion into legislation that is comprehensive, equitable, and truly beneficial for all citizens of St. Lucia. Madam Speaker, as the representative for Babono, I stand here today not to oppose the spirit of the motion, but to ensure it truly serves our people. I invoke the wisdom of the St. Lucian Nobel laureate, Sir Arthur Lewis, may he rest in peace, who said, "The fundamental cure for poverty is not money, but knowledge." Let us, therefore, arm our resolution with both knowledge and foresight, crafting a framework that will stand the test of time and tide. It is our duty, our mandate, and our moral obligation to do so. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Member for Castries East.
Madam Speaker, honorable members of the House, greetings to the people of Castries East and by extent, the people of St. Lucia. Madam Speaker, as Minister of Education, Sustainable Development, Innovation, Science, Technology, and Vocational Training, I had the opportunity of visiting a few schools within my constituency, and I was pleased to note that quite a few of them contain smart classrooms. Now you may wonder, where am I going with this? The aim of a classroom is to provide a more engaging and effective learning environment for students. By using technology, teachers can create lesson plans that are more interactive and engaging. Additionally, more opportunities for collaboration and hands-on learning is provided. Madam Speaker, I want to specifically mention Bokar Secondary School. I was able to speak with the special education teacher there, Ms. Zenith Duncan, and I was elated to hear that the kids are now eager to learn. A school with primarily boys. There were smaller special education classes, with the largest class being about 8 students. One-on-one sessions were held regularly with a special focus on language and maths. And you will know that for the past few years, our students, primary school level, secondary school level, some of them, they go through the loopholes not being able to read or not being able to count properly. But Madam Speaker, I'm here to tell you that the teachers are witnessing gradual improvements with students who were once underperforming at these secondary schools. And these are the reports that I like to hear. Madam Speaker, now we are aware that children learn differently, and as a result, I would like to highlight the great work of the following institutions with regards to technical and vocational training, like NSDC, NELU, Sir Arthur Lewis Community College. Even at the secondary school level, there are a total of 14 subjects which are classed as either technical, vocational, or business, allowing students to be eligible for CVQ upon successful completion of these subjects. 14 subjects, Madam Speaker, eligible for CVQ. Madam Speaker, it would be remiss of me if I did not mention at this time the Youth Economy Agency. Having funded over 189 projects stemming from all around the island of St. Lucia, the length and breadth, including that of new and existing businesses. Business and finance training are provided free of charge to young entrepreneurs through short courses, engaging workshops, mentorship programs, and this right here is youth empowerment, Madam Speaker. Let me also make it known that a stipend is provided for these courses to aid with the transportation. There are also business mixers held throughout the length and breadth of the island, whereby these young entrepreneurs are able to network with those bigger businesses. Madam Speaker, I express my unwavering support for the motion proposed by the government of St. Lucia, the Helen Progressive Party, to establish a living minimum wage that aligns with the living wage standards of other states with the region. It is of utmost importance that the living minimum wage adequately reflects the basic economic factors essential to sustaining a decent standard of living. These includes, but are not limited to, the cost of essential commodities such as food, housing, healthcare, and other basic necessities. Particularly, we must prioritize the accessibility of these resources for those individuals who are impoverished and disadvantaged. Madam Speaker, we can all agree that St. Lucia relies heavily on tourism, like many other Caribbean islands. We can also agree that we were greatly affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. Some persons still having to deal with long-term COVID today. Additionally, the ongoing conflict in Ukraine has led to a rise in import prices affecting the economy further. Inasmuch as we are a resilient nation and we are used to making ends meet, especially women, Madam Speaker, working for $3.50 per hour should be a thing of the past. Madam Speaker, after speaking to a few constituents of Castries East, many of them told me that they work for $3.50. Some work for $5 an hour, and some are actually paid every other month. Madam Speaker, this has to be a thing of the past. I still believe in the saying, a fair day's work deserves a fair day's pay. There have been numerous complaints from people who work in the service industries on the pay they earn, such as the hotels, supermarket, security, and dry fruit workers. These people have families, children, responsibilities, and they too deserve a decent standard of living. In as much as we are mindful of the impact on the business community associated with such a move, we are looking at the holistic outcome. The employees are the lifeblood of any organization, and we need to ensure that we treat their life as just that, precious. With the guidance of the International Labour Organization standards, we can come to agreement as a nation on a livable minimum wage. Madam Speaker, as I commence, I would like to conclude. It is important that we support small businesses, especially youth entrepreneurs. They are tomorrow's leaders. With regards to the implementation of the livable minimum wage and its impact on St. Lucia's economy, without a doubt, we must do all in our capacity as leaders to improve and expand our current education and vocational training programs. These measures will ensure that a larger number of St. Lucians are well equipped with the necessary skills and opportunities in order to create and maintain employment, thus fostering and amplifying economic growth. Madam Speaker, with that being said, literacy is important, especially financial literacy. As Sir Arthur Lewis said, the fundamental cure for poverty is not...
Member for Castries East, you have 2 minutes left.
The fundamental cure for poverty is not money, but knowledge. the combination of this living minimum wage with knowledge would indeed foster and amplify economic growth. I thank you.
Member for Vieux-Fort North.
Madam Speaker, thank you. I want to establish from the get-go, Madam Speaker, that we on this side of the House, the Majesty's duly elected opposition, stand here today in support of the motion before us. Because, Madam Speaker, we are a party who believe in the growth and development of our country and the growth and development of the citizens of this country. So we are not going to stand here, Madam Speaker, and oppose for opposing sake. If it's good, we say that it's good. If we establish that it's going to help develop our people, Madam Speaker, we will stand here and we will support it, Madam Speaker. I recognize from the onset that the Prime Minister assumed the posture that we would automatically stand here not in support of the motion. And Madam Speaker, it really speaks to the type of division that seems to be emanating from the government, the majority government of this country. And so as I stand here and I hear my fellow colleagues on this side of the House speak to issues such as ensuring that persons are integrated and persons are consulted, I think it's a genuine concern. It's a genuine concern. And so when you look at the motion, Madam Speaker, where it speaks to consultation with key stakeholders, and I noticed that there was some level of an attempt to clarify who the key stakeholders are. But significantly, Madam Speaker, I did not hear mention of the Majesty's opposition as part of that consultation. So nous avons des gouvernements, Madame Speaker, et si opposition pas bon assez, et si il pas ni moun dans toutes ces constituencies là nous ka représenter qui brise voix nous tan en les yon bagay qui autant important pour gens comme Saint-Lucie. Madam Speaker, according to the UN, ensuring living wages will accelerate the achievement of a wide range of SDGs. And that includes SDG 1, no poverty, SDG 8, decent work, SDG 5, gender equality, SDG 10, reduced inequalities. Madam Speaker, it is no secret to us, and the Prime Minister did allude to it, that a lot of financial burdens have been placed on the citizens of this country. The people of the world, Madam Speaker, seems to be going through this in motions. COVID-19 came, and just when we thought we were breathing a breath and a sigh of relief after COVID-19, the Russia-Ukraine war, and then now the war in the Middle East. Are we going to get a break? And so it is incumbent on the ruling government to put measures in place that will attempt to alleviate the financial burdens of our citizens. And this is the reason why we can stand on this side of this House and support this motion wholly. Madam Speaker, working poverty will be addressed when this is implemented. According to the International Labour Organization, more than 630 million workers worldwide, which makes up for about 19% or 1 in 5, do not even have enough to lift themselves out of extreme or moderate poverty. And that report came out of the ILO in 2019. And of course, I have indicated that we have had so many external shocks that have affected our economy that that figure might have moved quite higher, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the motion speaks to a living wage being a human right recognized by the United Nations Universal Declaration on Human Rights. The UN Global Compact encourages companies to provide and promote a livable wage as an eventual aspect of decent work to ensure that all workers, families, and communities can live in dignity. And I think, Madam Speaker, this is really the spirit of this motion. C'est pour ça nous ka supporter. C'est pour ça nous ka supporter because nous comprendre l'esprit il kay mener à di dans pays ça là. So nous pas nous pièce division from this side of the house. Madam Speaker, in mentioning this aspect in terms of the United Nations Universal Declaration on Human Rights, my question then for the government is, what is the tool that will be used in order to analyze what a livable wage will be or can be in this country? There are some tools that are in existence, such as the UN tool for Global Compact, and perhaps these are one of the deficiencies of the motion, and even the Prime Minister in the presentation of the motion did not speak to some of these things that are very important. What will be used? Because what we want to ensure, Madam Speaker, is that there is a level of fairness that is used across the board to ensure no one is left behind. These things need to be said.
Member for Castries North.
Madam Speaker, I rise on a point of motion, on a point of order. Madam Speaker, forgive me. Madam Speaker, I wish to shed a little bit more light for those who may not be aware, Madam Speaker, that the motion covers a general policy, Madam Speaker. Specific application of general policy, Madam Speaker, takes place at the ministry level, Madam Speaker. Therefore, some of the concerns of the honourable member from the opposition will be addressed at a lower level than this bill, Madam Speaker.
Member for Vieux-Fort North, what say you?
Madam Speaker, I thank the member opposite for her attempt at a clarification or an edification, Madam Speaker. But Madam Speaker, it is my firm belief that not necessarily in the write-up of the motion, but in the presentation by the Minister of Finance and the Prime Minister of this country, we are coming here and we are asking parliamentarians to support a motion. How could we ask parliamentarians? How could we ask fellow St. Lucians? Lani moun ki do ala ka koute ou sav. Moun ki vle sav, what is in this for me? Et ou ka di yo, ou pasa di yo bagay kon sa, because ikay diskite a lot kote yo pa ka turn, kote yo pa ka we. Of course I understand that there will be very technical issues that will be addressed in the corridors of the ministries of finance and other concerned ministries. But I think it is important that some things that are very important should be addressed in this honorable house so that the people we represent know what is going on. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, another concern for me is the definition of what is a decent standard of living. And I think it has been said around the table that due to economic shocks, due to unforeseen circumstances, due to issues such as inflation that we may not have any much control over, the goalposts will be shifted. What may be a decent living wage, what we maybe consider as a decent living wage now may not be what is a decent living wage in a few months to come due to the external shocks. This is one factor. Secondly, the motion did speak to reviewing it, and I need to point that out. But again, the question is, what is determined as a regular interval for review? Ki le yo kay gade apwe y implémenté premier quoi et di il est pour nous garder encore because bagay a changé. Et si nous kay fait ça tous les 3 semaines qu'on nous kay fait pour gasoline à cette lycée, et bien est-ce nous kay fait ça tous les 6 mois? Est-ce que nous pouvons faire ça tous les années? Eh bien, c'est chaque élection couillée après 5 années nous pouvons faire. And that's an important issue that we need to address.
Member for Vieux-Fort North, you have 2 minutes left.
Thank you.
Member for Castries.
Madam Speaker, I wish to invoke Standing Order 3210 to ask for additional time from my fellow member to complete her presentation.
How many minutes?
2 minutes.
Members, the question is that Standing Order 3210 be invoked so as to allow an extra 2 minutes on behalf of the member for Vieux-Fort North. I now put the question. As many as of the opinion say aye. As many as of the contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, fellow parliamentarians. Madam Speaker, as I continue in terms of the consultative process, just a word of caution for the government that we have to ensure that key stakeholders actually means key stakeholders. So we need to ensure that the women are brought to the table. We need to ensure that the youth are brought to the table. We need to ensure that entities such as SLISBA and the Chamber of Commerce and financial institutions are all brought to this table because they are the ones who has to drive this policy forward. So I ask the question then, will there be a wage review committee put in place? Who will be the implementing agency or the review agency when this is implemented? Will it be cabinet, where the rest of us would not have a say or voice? Will it be a review committee? Will it be a desk at the Ministry of Commerce or the Ministry of Finance? I think these are pertinent issues that need to be addressed, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the other question is what measurement will be used to determine which businesses qualify for assistance? And because the motion speaks of ensuring that there are economic measures to assist businesses, particularly the small and micro enterprises. Will it be on the basis of application? Will it be on the basis of a robust program in the Ministry of Commerce where we will be able to identify through particular deliverables, for particular indices, which businesses qualify? How would we determine that? Would we on this side of the House, Madam Speaker, be able to make applications or be able to make requests on behalf of the small and micro enterprises within our constituency? Madam Speaker, again, I am saying all of this because we need to ensure that it is all-encompassing. We need to ensure that the constituents of the members of the opposition are not left behind and that the pie is shared as equally, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, another question I want to ask is, what will be the indices used to determine the livable wage? And if we remember when censuses are done, for example, what determines whether you are above the poverty line, whether you are indigent? It changes as time changes. I remember a time where whether you had a flushing toilet or a latrine toilet.
Member for Vieux-Fort North, you have 1.5 minutes left.
No problem. Determined whether you were poor or indigent. And so in this era, what will be the factors that will be used to determine what a livable wage? What are the areas of comfort? Because we say a livable wage is what you receive for standard work that is sufficient for a decent living. So how do we classify a decent living? Will it be based on your geographic location? Will it be based on your last name? Will it be based on the constituency you live in? I think these are important things to clarify. And so as I close, Madam Speaker, I want to say that a livable wage may also mean an increase in the recurrent expenditure for the government. And so my question is, has the government also taken that into consideration, not as a deterrent, Madam Speaker, but to ensure that there are other measures in place so as not to create a budget deficit in this country? Nous pas ça afford a budget deficit, Madam Speaker. Et ce gouvernement ni pour assurer qu'on va mettre yon bagay en place pour assurer la vie moun primaire. Yon ni pour prendre l'autre bagay en considération pour assurer nous pas aller there, plutôt nous aller devant. And so I want to end like I started, Madam Speaker, to repeat that we are in full support of a motion to implement a livable wage because we understand the trickle-down effect in St. Lucia and in the constituencies we represent. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Member for Grozile.
Good day to this honorable House. Madam Speaker, Prime Minister, my fellow parliamentarians, and my people of Grozile, Grozile, according to Ezra Fundushin. Today is a remarkable day in history as women of both the current government, Helen's Progressive Party, and the opposition, Progressive Alliance Party, are gathered here in this honorable House to debate this very important motion put forward here by the Prime Minister, the Honorable Zina George. Madam Speaker, it is with great honor I am humbled to express my full 100% support in motion put forward a minimum livable wage. Madam Speaker, this government is a government for the people and with the people. And as the MP and Minister for Gender Relations, Home Affairs and Labor, I believe it is the time and the right time to implement this motion put forward here today. But before I continue to dive into the matter at hand here today, Madam Speaker, allow me to say how proud I am to stand here before you and the members of this House here today to represent my people of St. Lucia and Grozile alongside a cadre of strong, amazing women. It is often said that women belong in all places where decisions are made. And yes, we are here today. Every one of us should be stand tall and be proud because we all simply deserve to be. Madam Speaker, the motion put forward here today is a topic on everyone's agenda. Madam Speaker, everywhere you turn, you could hear and feel the plight of persons, not only in Grozile, but around St. Lucia. Madam Speaker, it truly breaks my heart when I walk the streets of Castries, my constituency, and around St. Lucia to hear the cries of people who are suffering due to the rise of costs of goods and services. Inflation, which has caused many to not have the spending power. And guess what? The story continues. The salary is not raised, Madam Speaker, the Helen Progressive Party stands on the guiding principles that we can and we should make a better life for families across our nation. Madam Speaker, it is noted that in 2018, inflation peaked at 2.6% and in 2022 by a soaring 6.4%. We all know the effects of inflation, consumers with less spending power in a country where there is no minimum wage established. Madam Speaker, according to the new International Labour ILO reports, the inflation is reducing the purchasing power of the middle class and hitting low-income households particularly hard. And again, the Global Wage Report 2022-2023, the impact of inflation and COVID-19 on wages and purchasing power, estimates that global monthly wages fell in real terms to minus 0.9% in the first half of 2022. The first time this century, real global wage has been negative. Madam Speaker, we all saw the effects of COVID on this country, especially our single mothers. This is why the HPP government will address this crisis and implement this motion, which will reduce income inequality and poverty. Madam Speaker, I would like to point out and let this honorable House know that St. Lucia does not have a minimum wage in place. Madam Speaker, I would like this House to note that the last time a minimum wage was established in St. Lucia was in 1985. And somewhere in the early 2000s, the construction sector implemented a minimum wage of $55 a day. Madam Speaker, I want to pause for a moment as the Minister of Gender Relations, because this reminds me of the domestic violence bill which sat on the AG's desk for over 20 years, and it was this government who came and made it into legislation. So therefore, we will make this motion put forward today become a reality for all St. Lucians. It is 2023, it is unacceptable. As a government, we must change and do what the people of this country has voted us into parliament to do, and this is to make the lives of our country, of our people, better for all. Madam Speaker, the increasing cost of living in St. Lucia has placed a financial burden on many citizens. According to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, a livable wage is a human right. In the context of this motion put here today, a minimum wage is an important policy instrument for reducing poverty and providing minimum social protection flooring for the most vulnerable persons. Establishing a minimum wage in St. Lucia will have several benefits, and I will now highlight some of these benefits for the citizens, businesses, and the economy as a whole. 1, improved standard of living. Madam Speaker, a livable minimum wage will ensure that all citizens are paid a wage that allows to maintain a decent standard of living. This would help to address income inadequacy and improve the quality of life for many St. Lucians. Quite simply, putting more money in the pockets of low-income workers, which will allow them to purchase more of the basic goods and services needed to survive. Stimulates economic growth. Addressing some inadequacy by establishing a livable minimum wage would increase the purchasing power of low-income earners, which would stimulate economic growth by increasing consumer spending. Decreased income inequality. A livable wage would help to decrease income inequality by ensuring that all citizens are paid a wage that allows them to maintain a decent standard of living. This would help reduce the gap between different socio-economic groups in St. Lucia. Reduce exploitation. And we know how some of our businesses exploit our workers. We walk into these places and we see it every day. A minimum wage helps prevent exploitation of workers by ensuring they receive a fair compensation for their labor. This will discourage employers from paying unreasonable low wages. And Madam Speaker, we see it and we hear it all the time. We know that some of our workers are exploited. We go into supermarkets, not even a chair for the cashiers to sit, but the prices ready to touch the sky. Workers on their feet all day and paying them bare minimum, exploiting the workers of this country, working long hours and barely paying them a decent wage to put food on their tables. I feel it for single mothers who can barely afford to send their children to school on a salary wage that some of this establishment pay out. Madam Speaker, this must stop, as the government improving the lives of citizens is of vital importance. And I take note of MP for Beaufort North, who asked which stakeholders will we bring. We will bring in the single mothers. And as the Minister for Gender Relations, I want the voices of all women heard, all the NGOs, the CSOs, these are some of the stakeholders we will bring into this consultation when we meet. The establishment of a livable minimum wage in St. Lucia would have a significant impact on several industries. Some of these industries that would be impacted by a livable minimum wage are the tourism industry. The tourism industry, as we know, is one of the largest employers in St. Lucia, and many...
Member for Grosley, you have 2 minutes left. Member for Castries Southeast.
Madam Speaker, I wish to revoke Standing Order 4210 to allow the member an additional 5 minutes to complete her presentation.
Honorable members, the question is that Standing Order 3210 be invoked so as to allow an extra 5 minutes on behalf of the member for Grosley. I now put the question. As many as of the opinion say aye. As many of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, my colleague over there. Like I was saying, tourism. We all know that the tourism industry is one of the biggest employers of St. Lucia. And many of these workers are paid way low wages. A livable wage would increase the wages of workers in this industry, which would improve the standard of living and reduce income inequality. Other industries include manufacturing, the factory workers, Madam Speaker, retail, agriculture, and the service industry. But Madam Speaker, I want to make it known that yes, while we are in full support, we know that there will be some possible negative impacts that we need to take into consideration as a government in order to get this right for the people of this country. These include increased labor costs for businesses. We know that if we implement the minimum wage, there will be effects of that on businesses, on micro businesses. And what are we going to do? Increase labor costs for businesses. Establishing a livable wage would increase labor costs for businesses and particularly small and micro enterprises. This could lead to higher prices for goods and services, which could negatively impact consumers. Another one, reduce employment opportunities. Some businesses may respond to increased labor costs by reducing their workforce or cutting back on employee hours. This could lead to reduced employment opportunities for low-skilled workers. Inflation already is on the rise. It may very well increase again. Establishing a livable minimum wage could lead to inflation, as businesses may pass on the increased labor costs to consumers in the form of higher price of goods and services. Reduce competitiveness. If a livable wage is set too high, it could make St. Lucia less competitive in the global market. This could lead to reduced foreign investment and economic growth. Madam Speaker, the HPP government will ensure that there are sufficient economic measures to assist businesses, particularly small and micro enterprises, to transition to the new wage structure. And I note the MP for Barbono and the other colleagues, and yes, on your recommendations, and we will take it into consideration, and we will also invite the other members on the opposition to come into this consultation to bring in their recommendations when part of this consultation. So yes, I heard you very loudly, and we are inviting you. We will not leave you out. Don't forsake. We won't leave you out. This would ensure that businesses are not negatively impacted by the establishment of a livable wage. Madam Speaker, this government will also establish a minimum wage commission, and in consultation with all key stakeholders, like I mentioned earlier on, especially the voices of the women I once heard. We want all the community leaders to come on board. It's not going to be just everybody coming on board. Conduct regular reviews of the livable wage to ensure that the amounts are adjusted accordingly to reflect any significant changes in the economy, given that the economy is subject to external economic events. Madam Speaker, this government will also look to enhance and expand the existing educational and vocational training programs to equip St. Lucians with new skills and opportunities to encourage new forms of employment by stirring economic growth. These are some of the measures that the HPP government will put in place considering the impact this transition may have on the economy. In conclusion, Madam Speaker, I stand here before you today. Like I mentioned earlier on, I am in full favor and support the implementation of the minimum livable wage in St. Lucia. I have noted my reasons why I believe it is the right time to do so, the importance of implementing a livable wage, and as the Rep for Grosley and Minister of Gender Relations, Home Affairs and Labor, I support my government full-heartedly. And yes, this is in the best interest of all St. Lucians. I want the people of my country to live a comfortable life, a happy life, and a better life for themselves and their families. To be able to afford the basic necessities. And this Helen's Progressive Party was voted in by the people of St. Lucia, and we will work for a better tomorrow for all the families of this nation. I leave you with this thought, and I want you to ponder on it. The care of human life and happiness, and not the destruction, is the first and only object of a good government. Thank you.
Member from Micoud North.
Madam Speaker, let me begin by saying I applaud the opposition for boldly coming to their senses and to stand in this honorable house to support this motion. Madam Speaker, I would also like to applaud the member for Beaufort South for those provoking questions, Madam Speaker, that has tickled my reflection a bit more to further examine the delivery of a livable wage, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the points drawn here by them are quite alarming, some of which I will allow to pass by, Madam Speaker, but others I simply cannot. I am happy that the member in opposition spoke of impact, and I repeat, Madam Speaker, impact. I beg and ask the question, is impact shown instantly, Madam Speaker? Was Rome built in a day, Madam Speaker? Not at all, Madam Speaker. It is with consistency and continuity that our nation will develop, with consistency of training and skilled programs, with the consistency of formation of small businesses, and learning to maintain those businesses will help with growth and prosperity of our country. Support is needed. At all times, Madam Speaker, you need support, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the representative for Dennery North and ancillary canneries, to be exact, spoke of unfairness and equality for program delivery. Let me beg to address this point that all initiatives geared at development in this country are for all, Madam Speaker, and not for some, Madam Speaker. Not for a particular class or race. When there is development in the country, it does not have a face, nor does it have a color, Madam Speaker. This brings me to the point, Madam Speaker, that we all can agree that skills training is needed for all. Yes, the NELU programs are given across the country. The GIPSID program funded by the European Union. With these programs, we are even providing transportation, childcare, and stipend to persons to ensure that they are skilled and trained, like our dear Minister for Education stated. We have placed more focus on areas in our communities that are more prevalent with poverty, Madam Speaker. Formation of small businesses. We have continued to assist with small grants, Madam Speaker. We have created the youth economy, Madam Speaker. These are just a few. Again, Madam Speaker, Rome was not built in a day. In time, it shall serve its purpose, Madam Speaker. And I hope that the opposition is listening, Madam Speaker. May I ask, what does the Ministry of Equity, to be specific, Madam Speaker, SSDF? Let me remind the Honorable House, they help in assisting households, especially for those single mothers, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, I heard almost every member on the opposition side spoke of single mothers. A member even indicated that our bill does not speak specifically to assisting our single mothers, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we have moved in times, Madam Speaker, and before, Madam Speaker, we would have said that the breadwinners in the family are males, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in 2023, I think it's fair to say that the breadwinners in most of our families, Madam Speakers, are our single mothers, our women, Madam Speakers. And Madam Speaker, they do not have the regular income to be able to survive and to care for their offsprings. They also assist with the book bursary program, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, shall I go on? I will just stop here. The Ministry of Equity continues to assist our citizens and equip them in calling moments such as those, Madam Speaker. Members of the opposition continued lambasting on the point of struggling businesses, Madam Speaker. Again, will impact be felt at once, Madam Speaker? Was Rome built in a day, Madam Speaker? We are not only going, we are not...
Member for Beaufort North. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I stand on a point of order. I think that the Prime Minister needs to be unambiguous in the way she is dissecting the presentations of the members of the opposition. I think we made some pertinent points, and in fact, your very motion spoke to the fact that there is need to assist businesses. And so we agreed that there is need. That is what we did. Your motion speaks to it. And I think that the Prime Minister is being very disingenuous. For the Prime Minister to have even prior said that the opposition have come to their senses, on what basis would the Prime Minister have made such a statement? From the get-go, the leader of the opposition stood up here in full support of the motion. So how could you determine that our senses were somewhere else before then?
Thank you, Member for Vieux-Fort North. Member for Micoud North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we are not the only ones going through this. The USA, we hear daily of their cries. The UK, our regional counterparts. Are we Jesus Christ not to feel it, Madam Speaker? We will. But the resilience and dedication we will bring Fair Helen to what it ought to be. A livable wage is needed, like the opposition stated, that we need to have constant monitoring and evaluations of these projects implemented. Rest assured, Madam Speaker, that my members in government will implement such measures to ensure that this is done. Members in opposition should not be dismayed. The opposition will be a key stakeholder when these consultations takes place, Madam Speaker. After all, your citizens of this country, and it's your legal right to have a voice. The opposition said, Madam Speaker, they will hold us accountable. You can go right ahead, the opposition, and hold us accountable. This is why we were elected, and this continues to mean that it is our business of St. Lucia. No longer can we work for $3.50 in an ever-growing world. It is a thing of the past, and we need to move in this modern world, but also continue to bring growth and prosperity to this country, Madam Speaker. I thank you.
Honorable members. Member for Micoud North.
Madam Speaker, I move that this House be adjourned, standard aye. Oh, sorry.
Honorable members, the question is that the government of St. Lucia establish a livable minimum wage which has taken into consideration the maintenance of a decent standard of living by ensuring that the basic economic factors such as the cost of food, housing, healthcare, and other basic necessities are within the reach of poor and marginalized. Be it further resolved that the government of St. Lucia, in consultation with key stakeholders, conduct regular reviews of the livable wage to ensure that the amounts are adjusted accordingly to reflect any significant changes in the economy, given that the economy is subject to external economic events. That the government of St. Lucia must ensure that there are sufficient economic measures to assist businesses, particularly the small and micro enterprises, to transition to the new wage structure. Considering the impact this transition will have on the island's economy, there is a need to enhance and expand the existing education and vocational training programs to equip more St. Lucians with the new skills and opportunities to encourage new forms of employment, thereby stirring and expanding economic growth. I now put the question. As many are of the opinion, say aye. As many are of a contrary opinion, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Before we end, a few words. This initiative would not have been the success it is without the support of the Office of the Parliament of St. Lucia, the Regional Office of the Caribbean Women in Leadership and the support of Pan-Americans. Special thanks to Miss Nita Louis, Senior Administrator in the House of Parliament, to the Honorable Alvina Reynolds, President of the Senate, and to the Honorable Dr. Virginia Albert Poyot, Minister of Gender Affairs, for their support along this venture. Keeping in mind the words of our Minister of Gender Affairs, with gender on the agenda, we extend thanks, of course, to the men who played a huge role in this success, namely the Honorable Claudius Francis, President, Speaker of the House of Assembly of St. Lucia, and the Honorable Dr. Kennedy Anthony, former Prime Minister and Member of Parliament for Vieux Fort South. Let me take this opportunity once again to congratulate all of you who committed to this process of learning, and to Civil St. Lucia for this unique opportunity. Congratulations, ladies. We did it. Member for Micoud North.
Madam Speaker, I move that the House stand adjourned, standard I.
Honorable members, the question is that this House do stand sine die. I now put the question. As many are of the opinion, say aye. Aye. As many as of the contrary opinion, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Sitting adjourned.
Welcome back to NPN, and we have witnessed the live sitting, albeit a simulated parliamentary sitting, by the Caribbean Women in Leadership Training. And as we speak now, the ladies are just preparing to exit this chamber. And the ladies gave a very commanding knowledge of the proceedings this morning. I think the women are just debating on something unknown, but right now, I think the women are again taking their seats. We do not know what is happening, but the chairperson of the Caribbean Women in Leadership, Ms. Karen Tobia, will give us some clarity and greater detail of what is happening. But let us go to the floor.
Listened. I want to commend you on the various research that was done in terms of your presentation. There are certain things we believe we need to tighten up a bit, but that's not for you. It's more for parliaments and the teachers, actually. To me, there are certain areas in terms of the point of order that are not points of order. So things like that is going to come gradually with the education. So, but in terms of your department, the way you stood up, the confidence level, the research that you have done, I am extremely pleased that we have a wide cross-section of persons who can take over. So I am comfortable now that I can take a back seat. I think that's very important, because that is an area of concern to us, that we do not have, the ladies are not coming forward in the political arena. So that is why I actually sat. I forego the beginning of another meeting to see and to get the feel as to what is happening. So I want to commend you on that, participating in this critical conversation. The subject as well is critical for us being all of St. Lucia. And the position that the opposition supported the motion was very good, because it's almost unusual. You always have the opposition taking a position. They will maybe speak on it, but don't say, I support. So I really want to commend the opposition team on taking this position, because there are certain issues where you have to say, it is good and we support. So you are setting the example by doing this. What needs to happen now, as I was sitting with, where's my colleague? Lucia. Yes. I was suggesting to the senator that we need to devise a way in which we can give this discussion legs, because that subject is an extremely important subject, and you are right, it has implications as it relates to the business community. And not only the business community as we think of the business community as established businesses, it has implications for the farming community, all employers. So it requires significant economic policies to give it the support that it needs. How is it going to impact our food security? Because we have your farmers to provide the food. So then that requires our government saying, what are the support systems we're going to put for our farmers? What are the support systems we're going to put for our small businesses? What implications we have, as some of you mentioned, the general health of our people, the well-being of our people. So you, I think, have done significant research in terms of the impact on various stakeholders. So that is good. We would like that conversation to continue out there now, because it is the government has intention to implement a livable wage. So this discussion needs to continue out there. And the key thing is how we do it, how we can use this discussion here, which is in the parliament, but not, I would say, without the political divisiveness that is always there. You had the first time the opposition speaking on it, identifying areas that requires further analysis and response, but saying, yes, in essence, we support this because it is good for our country and for our people. So how we take this, the persons like Senator who's in the media has to devise a way. You as well should provide feedback in terms of how you see you taking this and bringing it to your constituent, where you are, your groups, whoever you represent, to make it a discussion, a national discussion. So I want to thank you. I'm proud of you, and I'm hoping that Cyril and Parliament will continue having such discussions. Well done. Okay? I think
Okay, we are here now speaking with the chair of the Caribbean Women in Leadership, St. Lucia chapter. And Karen Tobia, welcome to the NTN station.
Thank you, Lydia.
The motion before the House this morning was that the government of St. Lucia establish a livable minimum wage. And you must be proud of how those young ladies gave a good representation of themselves.
Oh, I feel like a mother hen. I feel like a mother hen that has just gone through the whole emotion of watching. I have watched these young ladies come in, some of them just eager to be part of the training. Some of the people that you would have seen today, some of the ladies that you have seen today, did not really want to step up in the political arena. They were content to be working in the background. But through the training, they have developed the confidence to come and stand here today. And I remember one of the things that I said when we were wrapping up our training sessions. I said to them, I want to hear you speak to statistics, do some real work, and let's not do this just anecdotal, but let us make sure that when you speak from a position of authority and knowledge. So you need to do the research that is needed to make sure that when we speak in the House, that we are speaking on a level that people will understand that we are not just talking, but that we know what we are referring to and speaking about. And I think today, every single lady who stood up to speak today, I'm so proud of the effort that all of them have made to be here and to bring this to a conclusion. It's amazing.
It's amazing. I mean, I heard the mock minister of commerce. She almost gave the minister of commerce some competition a run for herself. It was amazing. You said the research was deep. It was profound.
It was.
The arguments were logical. The rebuttal, the rebuttal was sound. But as the minister mentioned, there is some more work to do. So briefly, tell us, this is the end of a particular training session for the women in leadership. Could you just speak to that?
So this was actually a 10-week training program that we put in. We called it Women in Politics, and so we covered various topics that we thought would be pertinent to women who want to step into the political arena. So today is the official closing. Well, there will be a soft closing afterwards where we give out certificates. But today really is the culmination of that training. The culmination being that the ladies would reach a point where they could actually stand up in the Parliament of St. Lucia and deliver as any parliamentarian would. So today is actually the culmination of that 10-week training program.
Well, if I could say so myself, well done. The women, the young ladies look like they were students of parliamentary procedures and processes.
They were.
And they really did give a good account of themselves. So kudos to the Caribbean Women in Leadership Training, and I imagine there would be subsequent training?
Yes, there will. Part of what of Civil does is really to provide training for women in leadership. So we do have more other training programs that we do, but I do believe coming out of this and from the response to this and what has happened, I think that we need to go back, because we had planned to do this just as an initiative for this year. This was our main focus this year, but the request is that we do it again. So I think that somehow we need to think of doing this possibly on an annual basis and seeing and I think if we can actually do training like this on a regular basis, that we will see that our women will respond and will become more engaged. Of course, our hope from Civil's point of view is that we will prepare women who are willing to step into the political arena. So I think if once we have done this, and amazingly a lot of the ladies who came through, and even those that we have asked to come in, you would have seen Senator Tusa in there, and one of the remarks she made when she was in the program, during the program, she said she wished that she had gone through this prior to becoming a senator. It would have prepared her so much more to be able to stand comfortably in the House. So I think it is something that we will consider doing again, maybe on an annual basis, maybe biannually. We have not decided as yet, but we definitely will be doing it again.
Well done, Karen. You could take your hats off. Kudos to you. Saying thank you to our viewers. We were looking at a little mock parliamentary session hosted by the Caribbean Women in Leadership Training. On behalf of our technicians, my name is Virgil Leonti, bidding you a good day.